the role PM's doc or anything on the screen, or is
The what?
it?
There is a screen share option for you. If you like hover over the screen, you can see a bunch of like icons.
Hey, we're live,
Yeah.
just FYI.
Click on the green
Oh,
thing,
joy.
and you should be. It'll
Hello,
like redirect from your face to whatever's on your screen.
Okay, I see settings.
Yo, can you get rid of
Okay,
this?
you just hover your mouse over the left.
Everybody shut up except for me. Uncle
Okay.
Sam, to the very left, there's like a green
Oh.
monitor with an arrow.
Okay.
That's the screen share.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why Andy decided to give you like a 15-minute explanation, but
Hang on, I have to change my preferences to allow this.
is that gay porn tab open?
What?
What is this, big booty Havana bitches?
Okay, is it working?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Hey guys, so this is the video post game for Lord of the Rings Mafia, inspired by Loneliness's Mafia 2 post game. I guess I'll start out with
Introductions.
yeah. So I'm Uncle Sam. I was the host of this game. And you guys can all introduce yourselves, I guess. The letter L.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm the letter L. I was the co-host for this game. I helped a little bit with, talking through a little bit of the roles prior to the game. Did a little bit of updating, but this is pretty much Uncle Sam's brainchild. I basically was just there to tell him when things were good or bad ideas, and mostly reinforce good ideas. So, yeah, that's basically what I did. So maybe we should, go to some of the villagers and then go to the Mafia and then the wolves. So, Loneliness, you want to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'm Loneliness. I was Faramir. Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I was Faramir, village Gondor sheriff. So yeah, that's what I did. Lightwolf, it's all you.
Hi, I'm Lightwolf. I was Gandalf. I was nearly an auto rogue, but actually wasn't, as it turned out in the end. And for my main role, I was an all-village sheriff, and I led the village into its doom.
Let it right into the ground.
Yes, into doom.
Oh, okay. Am I next?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm Bass, or you can call me Bass. I don't care how you pronounce it. Just for the record, people seem
Anybody who says base is wrong.
Just
Okay.
as long as we
I
get
don't-
within the ballpark.
Okay, so you can pronounce it however you want. That's the point. So anyway,
Can I call you
I
boss?
Sure, call me boss. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, so my role was Gothmog, the Orc chieftain, and you might remember him from the movie. Is that Orc general who led like the battle of Pelennor Fields in the third movie? He is the guy that says the age of men is over, the time of the Orc has come. Pretty bad, in my opinion, pretty cool character in the movie. But anyway, I was sort of the main leader of the Mafia for the second or the last 2/3 of the game. Billy was sort of the one who did most of the work in the beginning. It's kind of unfortunate that he can't show up today, so I'll have to ad-lib some things in his place. So please put up with that. And yeah, that's all for me.
Cool.
Okay,
So, Snipe, do you want to go?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Snipe. I was the wolf, so I was part of the wolf pair. So until Von Fiedler died, me and him were mostly talking about the game, and then I just did whatever and got somewhere.
So,
Okay.
well, what was your role specifically? Like, you were,
Yeah.
you were like the.
I
Should
was
probably
the
give some explanation on that.
I was the wolf that fucked with the Mafia a lot, and then had to like pull them together.
Were you Gollum or were you Smeagol?
I was Gollum, Von Fiedler was Smeagol.
Cool.
And
All right, Vaughn.
I'm Von Fiedler. I was Smeagol. I was the wolf who got himself killed when he was supposed to be mulling the village. So
Okay, I have to ask.
I
Uncle
accept
Sam.
some mistakes, but I also can whine about the game design.
Yeah, Uncle Sam, what was up with that? His role was like specially designed to get fucked by Lightwolf, because anyone with half a brain sees Merry and Pippin and is like, oh, Sam is obviously talking about Merry and Pippin.
I presume you're referring to Samwise Gamgee's extra role?
Yeah, his little piece of info.
Don't trust like your other habits or something, and mention that explicitly. I remember.
No, okay. So if you go back and read it, what it says is don't trust those close to you. And this was intended almost as much to distrust Gandalf as it was to distrust Merry Pippin, or, I mean, almost anyone else, like Gimli, Legolas, Aragorn. It's just that for whatever reason, and I have no idea why, everyone immediately assumed it was Merry and Pippin.
Because I'm the best candidate for it.
I feel
I'm
like
their friend. Like, I'm the closest friend who's not the guy with the ring.
Really, at that point,
alright,
you already suspected him.
I just want to add, like, to what Ellen sort of said earlier. Like, I think this applies a little bit to the save claims given to the Mafia as well, kind of being, like, just by design, like how they didn't fit with the rest of the village rules. So that made them easier to figure out and whatnot. I mean, I think we can spend more time talking about this later, so we can give Uncle Sam a chance to talk. But just mentioning that so we remember to discuss it when the time comes.
Yeah. I think that first we should probably just talk about the basic design. So maybe Sam and I can kind of go into detail on, you know, exactly what the setup was and kind of the role distribution and what have you. And then probably go from there into talking about, you know, just having a kind of open discussion about the setup and then kind of going into the gameplay, I think, and how it actually played out. I think that talking about setup probably makes the most sense first.
Yeah, I agree. So, without further ado, this originally started, it was just me. Delateral hadn't joined yet. And basically, I had a number of games designed that I looked at recent big Mafias and realized that the number of people signing up for games was just not large enough to support the types of games that I wanted to host. And so I decided basically that I wanted to recruit new players to play Mafia, to make Mafia more accessible to people who were more familiar with the party game and who might be disillusioned by the relative inaccessibility of alias games, anonymous forum games, multi-faction games, free-for-alls, and so forth. And so I decided, all right, I want to make just a regular Village versus Mafia game where many of the players just have stock roles. And, but, of course, I didn't want to just do a typical, you know, basically NOC, no outside communication Mafia, because I tended to find that those devolved into what a lot of people refer to as scum hunting wars, which I personally dislike. I think that people will read too much into what people say and not enough into well, actual evidence in those sorts of games. Though, to be fair, there's not that... Anyway, I could go on and on about NOC for a long time. The point is, I came up with this idea because Lord of the Rings Mafia had not been hosted, which I thought was very unusual, considering how prevalent the Lord of the Rings movies are and the books are among, well, in popular culture today. And so I decided that rather than making people vanilla, I wanted to have basically stock roles so that people could still do things. It's just that they would have to communicate with the other villagers, and so it would be similar to the Mafia 2 Street Justice kill. for example, which was it was a kill where once every other night the villagers gathered together, and if more than 50% of the living villagers sent in the same kill target, then it would succeed. I believe that was.
Yeah, it was a brilliant bit of game design, is what it was.
I'm gonna comment. I think it's good that you mentioned Mafia 2, not only because of the ironies of Williams like hosting this for us, but also just I thought there are a lot of things that happened in the way of game design. But there's a lot of parallels that could be made from Mafia 2, and in fact, I did read like both like Mecha and Jump Plus Postgame and the one Loneliness did recently, like before coming to this, so I have some perspective to remember from that.
Well, the parallels between this and Mafia 2 are I mean, both purposeful because, frankly, I think to this day Mafia 2 was the game I had the most fun in playing and reviewing previously. And so I was definitely drawing on many of the ideas introduced there in creating this. In any case, so the first thought I had, I do like wolves. And not just because I like designing more interesting roles. I think the real key and what the wolf role was in this game was a balancer. What I wanted basically was if I screw up the numbers in any way, I want there to be a safeguard against one faction or the other just steamrolling. And as it turned out, the wolf ended up helping both of the major factions based on whichever one was stronger at the time. And I think this game would have been much less interesting if it had just been Mafia versus Village, as is typical for the most standard of games. In any case, in designing the village, I mean, so the ring dynamic was really the start because ultimately, if you think about it, the theme of Lord of the Rings is really entirely based around, maintaining the ring's safety. And so I didn't think I could really call this Lord of the Rings Mafia so much as just a Mafia game with some Lord of the Rings role names thrown in if I didn't have a dynamic whereby the main village, good faction, was severely hampered by the loss of the ring. However, and I think I'm backed up by the books here as well, the forces of Sauron and Gollum did not immediately win by gaining the ring. It wasn't such a horrible blow that it was instantaneously game over. But nonetheless, in designing the village, I decided I wanted to go for a very protective, heavy village. As a result of that, typically you'll see usually a bodyguard or reverse martyr, maybe one other backup protective role on a village. On this, you see 2 full night bodyguards, as well as 2 different 2-timer mass protects, which basically all of it was designed to keep Frodo alive as long as possible, while hopefully, and this didn't work out as I planned, evolving discussion in order to figure out who the Mafia were.
Can I interject a little bit about that
Absolutely.
part? So my only problem with the ring is that it doesn't really benefit the village in any way. It's like solely a negative part of the village. It's like not only do we have all these power rolls that we need to save and like protect, but we also have to make sure that Paperblade doesn't die, and we also have to make sure that Frodo doesn't die. So like, yeah, you gave us a lot of protection, but we're kind of forced into who we have to protect rather than giving us more leeway with it. And not only that, but like the giving of extra kills to, Snipe in particular is like such a huge swing that we can't afford for Frodo to die. And I think it was maybe a little short-sighted to think that he wouldn't die all game. So like they're like guaranteed to get those kills at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The game was definitely designed with the idea that Frodo would eventually die. The hope was that the village would be able to eliminate perhaps the wolf and Sauron before he died, in which case there would only be one additional kill leveled against them. But ultimately, yes, the ring is a negative force for Middle-earth. I think that's what all of Lord of the Rings is about, really, and I didn't think it would be true to the theme, I guess, if the ring somehow... well, I mean, actually, the ring did give Frodo the
Yeah, gave him that one-time
every other night
protection.
self Omniguard,
Oh,
which I
it wasn't one time. Sorry, my error.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
it
every
was,
other night, but it did save him once.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Like, it was pretty much he was pretty much guaranteed to be saved by once because we inspected him. He posted his role PM. We were gonna definitely want to kill him as soon as we could. Basically, once Sam was dead.
Yeah, and that was the idea, was that, you know, it was going to be hard to kill him no matter what, and the Mafia would have to use extra kills to kill him just to get extra kills back later on, which, you know, as it turns out, was worth it, but the village, if, for example, Paper Blade had evaded, you know, 3 kills, would it have been worth it to get those 3 back later? I mean, maybe, but it all depends on how long Frodo can stay alive. And I think that was what differentiated this village from many other villages, which is... This is a trend that I don't like much in Small Gun Mafia, which is that villages are becoming essentially expanded versions of the Mafia. They have lots of power roles, no real identity. Their only identity is that they don't know who each other are, which obviously is something that you can't change, but I didn't like that basically villages game after game were just large, basically overpowered entities that every other faction would have to gang up on just to have a chance at beating. I wanted the village to actually have to play smart, to have to play the other factions like everyone else, and I wanted them to be a lot more balanced than I think most villages are. And to not be able to get away with the typical, honestly, really poor play that many villages are able to get away with and still have a good chance.
Yeah, if I can add something in about my thoughts, just really quickly. So I think that, first of all, the way that, you know, Gollum and Smeagol kind of work, if Smeagol ends up getting outed and killed, there is virtually no way for the wolf to win unless there's some kind of dynamic with, you know, with getting extra kills or having like extra votes or extra protection, what have you. So I think that, especially in the context of this game, I think it made sense for the wolf to get extra kills if like the village was bad enough to not, you know, figure out who he was. I mean, Gollum isn't exactly like shouldn't be too hard for someone to find out whether it's the Mafia or the village. So, so the fact that he gets 3 kills off of being able to like hide that well, I think, you know, rewards wolf play pretty well. And I think that, you know, you could argue that perhaps there could have been other roles like that could have been given to reward them instead. But I think that kills make sense. You know, they're wolves. I think that they function pretty well to, you know, allow for them to have a kind of like chance to win just based off of the swinginess, because I find like in most games are won off of a you know, kind of off of timing and off of swing, like being able to take advantage of a swing, or it's based off of a kingmaker. Like that's kind of how most people end up winning a game. It's either because they like plan everything out to the point where they know they have a certain kind of advantage and then kind of push it, or it comes down to a kingmaker, or just like one team's just bad and they take advantage of like a dumb village. And
well, yeah, like, well, that's just
like,
kind of the
really
nature. That's just kind of the nature of having more than one team. Like,
Right.
one team is obviously, like, in a late game scenario, is going to be in an unwinnable position. So their only existence is to fuck over one of the winnable teams.
Right.
So like that's just the nature of Mafia, and that's nothing that you can really get rid of.
I know that there really isn't much way to solve Kingmaker unless you're playing a two-faction game. I didn't mean to try to discredit Kingmaker as a thing to avoid in game making or what have you. But I do think that it's a lot more rewarding to win a game off of, being able to think through some kind of strategy based on some kind of swinginess or some kind of way through roles that if another team isn't aware of or thinks, hey, maybe I should check this person or maybe I should find out more about this person, I think that that's something that's much more rewarding to the player who actually receives it. And I think that that's a completely legitimate way to win a game. And I think that here, that if the Wolf were to win based off of those extra 3 kills, yeah, I think that the Wolf would totally deserve that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
my only thing is I felt like maybe the Ring ought to have given not a really good power to the village, but maybe just some kind of advantage other than just don't let him die, otherwise we're fucked. You know what I mean? Because that gives. Not only does that make you feel good for protecting him, because you get to continue using this slight advantage, but it also plays into the protect the ring. You know what I mean? It's both twofold. Not only does it encourage you to protect the ring, but the village feels good about protecting the ring instead of hampered by it.
Right.
So mind if I?
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, so I've been holding it for a while, but I kind of really want to have my sort of chance to talk about my perspective on the Ring, because it was admittedly it was one of the things as soon as I found out what the Ring actually did for Snipe, it was probably the biggest thing I bitched about to Uncle Sam. The day that we tried killing him, and then I find out that he had this.
By the way.
Well, we'll talk about that more later. But the point is, we found out later they had Protect, and some people on my team thought he might have that. But it leads to sort of one of my criticisms about the Ring, and I kind of remember, I wasn't as involved in Mafia 2, so I can't speak to this as well, since I wasn't involved in any of that until the very late game. But I remember there were some mechanics in Mafia 2 that weren't revealed. Let's say on an inspection result, you find out how something works either after someone dies or you attempt to kill someone. And in that sense, the Ring was like that. We inspect Paper Blade, so we basically, both Snipe and I assume that, okay, once we find Sam, we can just kill him, and then that catches us off guard, because, again, we inspected it, so we didn't really expect him to have that extra layer of protection. And then the same thing happens when we kill Snipe once, but this time it's more due to a balance thing, I thought, because I can totally understand why, based on what Delia said, to give the Ring the 3 extra kills, but to have the extra life on top of the fact that Snipe starts off as a Mafia mole, that, basically it pretty much forced the game to either go to Kingmaker or Snipe wins, basically, if we don't kill him on that night. So that's why I was really pissed off when that happened, because I thought, I put all this effort to prevent a Kingmaker, but in order to prevent that from happening, I would have had to kill Snipe before he gets the Ring. But if I kill Snipe before he gets the Ring, we have to contend with a village with large numbers, and Billy would have likely died before he used up all his 3 kills.
See, that's actually I like that. I actually liked that he got Night Protection, because I've always been a thought that the Mafia should only be killing villagers. So I liked that he got Night Protection. Only because I feel like it's the Mafia's job to force the village to lynch the wolf. That's just a thought I feel is correct.
I understand, but that's again, that's quite when you're playing a game of numbers, that can be potentially very, very difficult to pull off. I mean, I'm just thinking a little bit about Mafia 2 again, because the wolf was in fact outed by the Mafia at that game, and the Mafia they felt completely justified. I think Light Wolf still probably felt justified in making that move. And now that I've been in this game and having to deal with constantly thinking about the numbers like this, I have a little bit more sympathy for him. I thought, oh shit, they just played terribly, it was dumb. But now having been through that kind of experience, I have a little bit more sympathy for going through it. That's a very, very hard thing to really think about and deal with.
Okay, so bringing it back in response to the Kingmaker aspect with game design. My goal was for there never to be a true Kingmaker situation, but rather for every team to have a chance to win. So for it to be basically, 3 different factions all with a chance to win, all that could make either other team win. But Kingmaker implies that one of the teams can't win and just picks between the other 2. My hope was that all 3 teams would have a chance. And in order to do that, what I basically did was, when designing the village roles, I ensured that the last villager, unless the Mafia wanted to keep one of their power roles alive, would be either a vigilante or a mayor, both of which could beat, a single Mafia or even the wolf in a 1 versus 1 situation. And so a lot of the village's power, I would say, was sort of hidden in the fact that they had to get really stomped to lose in the endgame. Which, I mean, of course, people will calculate for this, and so the late game kills will be repurposed in light of the fact that the village has an extra mayor. But I do think that it gave the village a much better chance than they do in many other games. For example, Mafia 2, where once the village is down to 2, 3, 4 people, it's basically game over for them.
Well, unless they've got street justice still.
Yeah, but street justice had the lowest priority among kills, which actually did make a huge difference.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that actually a single soldier of Gondor could solo any of the non-villagers in the game, assuming Smeagol's Lynch redirect had been used. The Orc Protect was an interesting dynamic, I guess, to counter that.
Actually, if we were gonna say one, like, multi-use Lynch protection, I feel like grossly puts the game in favor of the Mafia.
But here's where, and no one really picked up on the Rohirrim the entire game, which I think is the main reason the village lost. If all of the Rohirrim voted for whoever was Orc protected, and that person was lynched but didn't die, the Rohirrim would still kill them that night. That was the village's workaround. The idea was that if everyone on the village lynched someone, the Orc protection would be basically useless. I mean, of course, they would have to use up their 1/2 Rohirrim power, and they wouldn't be able to kill anyone else with it. But the idea was that, the Orcs would not just be stopping every other lynch. And in fact, I don't think anyone ever avoided the lynch via the Orc Protect.
No one avoided the lynch, but it did sort of win us the game at the end. But I just I'm trying to remember from, didn't Mafia 2 have the Goon Squad thing that protected the Godfather after he was out?
Yeah, it only protected him, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the idea, but I think...
oh, shit, I lost my headphones.
Sorry.
I mean, I thought, in general, the general game design I felt was pretty good, and I liked what you did with the Riders and the Gondors, and I think it's a real shame that there was such a sentiment of people getting those roles and then just not wanting to play at all. I would have played with those roles. You know?
See, the problem with that is the problem with giving people vanilla roles, and I found this in Mafia 2, was the reason why it's okay to give people vanilla roles in real-time Mafia is because days only last 15-20 minutes, you know what I mean? But when you're stretching being vanilla over the course of 3 weeks, it just gets boring. It's just you're just bored.
I'm considering I was vanilla in Mafia 2, and that I've bitched about certain things about the game loneliness, but when I reflect on it now, the only thing I could really bitch about was honestly being in a vanilla and the village leadership refusing to add me, even though there was substantial evidence that I was clean. So just putting that on the record, that was one aspect of the game that I was most, was being vanilla and bored.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of why, in Superhero Mafia, there's no vanillas. like because I don't want anybody to
Spoiler
be bored.
please.
Like I don't know. I think it's just vanilla roles just really translate poorly to.
So you mean
online
that I
Mafia.
can't claim Ollie in superhero? God damn.
Yeah, and you can't like auto lead the village to a flawless victory like I did.
I know. I can't
This
do
whose
it.
fault, though? What is this?
Alright.
But if I were to redo Mafia 2, like, well, I mean, none of the villagers were actually villagers. You know, they each had little unique roles, which I did in an attempt to make people not bored. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't do any villagers like whatsoever. I would put like the perma-vigi in, like, just as part of like, I'd make it as a side note for like 10 of the villagers who also had like persuader and silencer and this, that, and the other thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the vote vigilante and everybody votes, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that it's hard because, like, it's just going back to the ring. You mentioned that you didn't like that it was like a completely negative effect, and I mean, I guess all I can say is that I took that into account, as it were. Like, I feel that this village, in the absence of the ring, would be, well, as overpowered as many villages have been.
Yeah, by no means are the Rohan and Gondor bad roles. They're just boring.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like,
can see
they're,
that.
They're really powerful. In fact, they're probably the most powerful vigilante and mayor that has ever existed, except for, I guess, Street Justice was, unblockable, so that's probably more powerful. Like, they are really, really powerful roles. They're just really fucking boring.
Yeah, I think the problem, and I'll touch on this a bit later, but the problem was, well, no one ever tried to use the Rohirrim.
I think that Rohirrim would have been an interesting role if people actually tried to use it and tried to talk out who the second kill would be, because most of those times when they could have actually had a second kill, there wasn't really an obvious target, so there could have been a lot of discussion and it could have been kind of interesting. And I think that, but I think that I do agree that the Soldier of Gondor is naturally a pretty boring role. It's basically a vanillager for most of the game, except at the end it's kind of cool that you're a mayor and you can outvote anyone, basically. So I do agree, like, Soldier of Gondor is kind of naturally a boring role, but I kind of have two comments about this. First of all is that it's very hard in games to take into account the fact that, first of all, that most roles are going to either be a boring role or like a really strong role, and balancing that with the fact that villages are just becoming stronger and stronger in most games, and then kind of having then a mafia that's somehow even stronger than that, and then, you know, a wolf that can somehow compete. Like, it's hard to balance games with the consideration of, oh, we need to make sure that every single role is an interesting one, and what does interesting mean, what have you. And I think that that's naturally just something that's difficult in the game making process, to make like every role interesting.
So,
'Cause, like,
DLE.
first of all, yeah, go for it.
So, I told Vaughn, like, during everybody votes, like, I drew this parallel to things I'd say about, like, Bass Game. I'd say, like, how the game is, like, meant to be, like, how fun it is depends on how much effort you put in, is what you make of it. And I said that to Vaughn about his game, but I think reflecting, it's really only, like reflecting about it now, it's only true to a certain extent, because, like I said, in Mafia 2, there was nothing I could do about the village leadership circle shutting me out. Like, you know what I mean? So,
like, naturally, there are just some players are just never going to be able to lead with their roles. I think that's kind of naturally obvious and understandable in most contexts. But I mean, it kind of sucks for some of these players. Like, you know, for example, giving Mecha like the Dragonite role in Pokemon Mafia, like, that role just, like, literally, like, sucked. It was just, like, the worst role, if anyone actually remembers this role.
I don't remember it.
Wasn't he just, like, uninspectable, and then...
He's, like, uninspectable, he can't hold items, and, like...
And when he dies, he doesn't get, like, revealed for a couple of days?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was really, really dumb. And there's, like, no way anyone can ever lead with this role.
It's not only can you not...
that's inherently interesting about this role is that you have to somehow prove to the village that you aren't just full of shit. Like,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that's remotely interesting about this role.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit, finish up about the game design of the village, and specifically about the most maligned aspect of this game, which was my stated desire to undermine the village leader system and its apparent failure. Basically, the idea with the power roles was,
To
well,
like not give us any.
well, no, I think you guys actually had very strong roles. You had 3 every night checkers, 2 bodyguards, a couple of very good one-timers, and a tracker. Though ultimately the tracker was not as useful because one of the later additions was that Sauron could send other people to kill. But in any case, I think that really the reason that village leader, well, I mean, we know why it sucks. I think that village leader has to be used to some extent, but not necessarily in a form that sucks for everyone else. My hope was that a small group of villagers would get together during the nights and, would talk about who they were targeting, maybe come up with codes for their results, but wouldn't necessarily just step up and say, "Hi, I'm the leader, lynch this person." And I think that my reasoning for this is that ultimately, it became very obvious who the village leaders were. Just after a couple of days of, everyone claimed to Ular Warlord, which was a problem. But B, and as well
How did
as...
how did that work? Why would you claim to him?
We'll talk about it when the time comes.
We'll
Yeah.
talk about that when we get to gameplay.
As well as a lot of people publicly claimed in the thread, Loneliness didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah, I was forced into it.
Lightwolf didn't have much of a choice. But Ray Scarface basically publicly claimed in the thread and no one noticed, which I thought was kind of funny.
I did.
He ended up...
Lightwolf's like, I noticed.
Yeah.
People will never play the special way that you want them to if you don't tell them how you want them to play, and then they still probably won't play that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
They're
I
not
know
psychic.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I had to tell Mecha in Mafia 2, you are supposed to mold the village. Now do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I understand that, but I do like to have people decide how they want to play, within the framework that I've given them, because I don't want to pretend that, the way I envision them playing is the only way they can possibly win. I hope that people are able to win with a variety of strategies, and I do, but see, the reason that I do think the village leader sort of screwed the village over in this game is that, well, for one, it killed activity in the village. And I think this is more predictable than maybe people might, think at the time, because, if you're a soldier of Gondor and someone's been feeding you Mafia lynches for, 3 days, your sort of drive to think about things independently goes way down. And so as a result, when the assured targets stopped coming because all of the power rolls died or got hooked every night, there really wasn't anything to be done because discussion had been completely stifled for days on end. Also, the village... I mean, at the least, they could have been talking about who should be Rohirrim, who wants to be Rohirrim, we can Rohirrim. One of the Rohirrim claims to clean you if you want. And, that could have introduced an interesting dynamic. But even just looking at, the days the discussion was happening, the arguments between Lightwolf and Ular Warlord basically exposed, Ditto and Celever and maybe a few others, just based on the discussions itself. And if you had kept up, if you had said, I'm suspicious of X, because he was a late claimer, for example, then maybe, you see what people say and you get more of a lead off of that. Versus just saying, we're lynching X today, go for it. And, it's really easy to blend in as a soldier of Gondor when all you have to do is type lynch X in bold font and then AFK for 72 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, so, one of my main regrets in developing the power roles for the village is that they had no way of dealing with basically 2 hooks a night. And Lonely Nest should know this better than anyone else because I think he was hooked every single night. But
I think
it was
Ellen
horrible.
literally got like 1 action off the entire game.
yeah,
It
he
was
checked
fucking
Billy
terrible.
Mills. That's right. But
He checked Billy
basically,
Mills and then believed Billy when he claimed that he was like, "Oh, I'm actually like
he was Boromir, but not
Boromir,
Gondor.
but I don't actually have the PM that says that I'm a villager." And
Okay, just FYI, I told, and oh god, we need to get to the freaking linchpin belief, like, because that's the only reason Boromir. That's the only reason Boromir got to stay alive, like. Because
Yeah.
okay, if anyone didn't know, me and Lightwolf were like convinced that the game was linchpin as soon as Frodo died. And so the only reason Boromir got off with it was like, oh, he must turn Gondor when the linchpin happens. That makes so much sense.
Just saying. I can totally understand why you came to that conclusion. Like, you didn't know the exact numbers of the game, so I think, and given we was a lack of information available, as the Mafia, we made several wrong theories about the game as well. So I think it's totally understandable that you did that, in my opinion.
Yeah, if we had known that there were so many Mafia, we would have never thought that because we were like, the numbers would have been completely retarded if it was linchpin. We were operating under the assumption that it was like Sauron, the wizard dude, and then
Witch King?
No,
Sauron, Witch King, Saruman, Shelob, and like 4 orcs was.
Yeah, we were operating under the assumption that there was only like 8 Mafia men, and like that there were equally sized factions. And the thing is, like, the setup of the game where Rohan had a vigilante, the Gondor had the mayor, and obviously a bunch of numbers, and the village had what we assumed was a rogue vigilante with Lightwolf. It seemed like perfectly set up to where each faction had a kill post linchpin. So like it made like fucking perfect sense that it was linchpin, especially given the context of Lord of the Rings in general. Like, Boromir is obsessed with the ring, and so is Denethor. Like the Rohan, or like they wouldn't mind having the ring. Like it makes sense that once Frodo dies, there's no reason for anybody to be allied with each other because it's just a free for all to see who gets the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was. That fucked us over more than anything else, is our obsession that it was the linchpin game.
Yeah, I think that maybe the reason that, the reasoning you could have employed for why it wouldn't be that way is that I stated this was more of a beginner-friendly game. And I think that linchpin doesn't really fall into that category.
Yeah, honestly,
but yeah, I mean, you had perfectly good... Yeah,
I think hindsight is 20/20 here, where you can like point out all the things that would point to it not being linchpin.
Yeah, but there were perfectly good reasons.
There were like a few reasonable hints that you could have employed to it. I think it's totally understandable that just looking at this kind of at a baseline of like, oh, there's these 3 very clear, distinct groups of villagers. Like, I think that's like it's understandable why like someone would kind of come to that conclusion. But let's just talk really briefly about the numbers, because I think the numbers are really, we haven't actually said what the numbers are. Like, what is
it's 26, 15, 2.
Yeah.
So basically, I was trying to, again, I looked at Mafia 2's numbers, and the numbers there were, I believe, 23, 14, 2. So this has 3 extra villagers, 1 extra Mafia. But, of course, I do think the village in Mafia 2 was much, much stronger than this village was. I think that, again, a lot of the power in the village was designed to be sort of hidden in the fact that it was difficult to actually sort of um, like beat them in the late game. You had to really throttle them to actually put them under. And I think that, for example, the Mafia had a lot of problems with how they were supposed to work. And the biggest thing that we haven't mentioned yet is the spy dynamic, which basically the Mafia in this game were separated into two groups. Those groups were a 6-member leaders faction, which was Sauron through Gothmog on this spreadsheet, and then I believe 9 normal orcs, all of which just had stock role PMs, and all of which knew each other and knew the Gothmog role, but only Gothmog knew who the other leaders were. The idea was basically, I wanted the Mafia to not be able to operate at full capacity during either the days or the nights. Because, again, there were so many of them. But more importantly, I felt that in order for the wolf to be an effective balancing factor, he needed to have primarily an information and stealth role without just a crazy amount of power as you normally see on a wolf. Because normally, you'll see a wolf with, a bunch of protections and kills and so forth, and but he'll just end up killing villagers or whoever the Mafia or more informed factions want him to, until someone inspects him and figures out how he can be killed, and then he's offed. And there's not really very much interesting about that to me, and so I wanted it to be sort of a role reversal, as it were. Yes, the village had their own moles to deal with, as most villages do, but the Mafia were having to deal with that as well, and in the late game, the Mafia typically had to be the one just straight outnumbering the village in order to have a chance to win. Whereas normally, you'd have to see the villagers being much more numerous than the Mafia. In any case, with the Mafia role design, the first thing I decided was which abilities they had to deal with that spy, the Golem role. And I didn't want them to be able to find Golem. Ideally, Night 6 was the breaking point. I decided that if they can find him by Night 6, I want this to be count as a plus. And if they can't find him by Night 10, I want it to count as a minus in terms of their power level. And so I gave them an every even night starting Night 2 check, but a check which had the detriment of basically publicly outing someone as an orc, unless, and this was what I liked about this role, the Shelob role is what I'm talking about right now, unless they wanted to use it on a villager or a Rohirrim as a silence. Which I felt that this role, Ular Warlord died very early because of, how suicidal he was, mainly.
Yeah.
And
that's a good way to put it.
Yes.
So ultimately, a lot of the intricacies of this role weren't fully explored, which I think is a little sad, because I do think the Shelob Smeagol orc dynamic is probably the most interesting design-wise. Basically, Smeagol's kill had no effect on the forces of Sauron, because the idea being he could only lead people to Shelob's lair, where Shelob would then, eat them. But if Shelob wasn't there, then the victim would just wander about in the tunnels. But obviously Shelob wouldn't eat an ally, and well, actually, I guess in the books all she eats is orcs, so that's questionable flavor-wise. But the idea
I
being
can't
that the
believe
wolf
you made that oversight, Uncle Sam. This is ridiculous. This whole game is a sham.
Oh my god.
That was a blatant Mafia, like flavor getting twisted to fit the Mafia balancing of the role designs, which I think happens a fair bit in themed games.
It either happens or it doesn't happen, and when it doesn't happen, it usually leads to really dumb or really overpowered roles. Like, if you try to make a totally lore-based game, you're probably going to have a bad time.
I'm not sure when would be the right time for me to comment on this, because, again, I'm Gothmog, so that I'm the player that has to act as the bridge between the Mafia and the Orcs, as was stated earlier, so that means I'm quite intimate with how this whole trader mechanic works, and therefore I have many, many, many things to say about it.
I want to hear your insights, Bess.
So you want to hear them right now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay then. So after talking just now, I think it's perfectly understandable what you were looking for. I think it was, in a sense, it was a necessary balancing factor for the Mafia. Given our numbers, I think and given how weak the village would become information-wise, without their power roles. So I think that aspect makes sense. But there were several things about it to me that really just didn't work, I think, as intended. And the first one, I think, is how the balance would change once we killed Vaughn, because again, I've said this over and over again, but our role PMs tell us we didn't know right away, of course, both due to flavor and due to again, to this idea of balance, that the mole on our team was the wolf. And because if we killed Vaughn due to him claiming Uller, so if we had killed there was actually a moment, which I might discuss later, where we were I was this close to telling Billy to have Uller use his role to check snipe because of a really odd fuck up I made, but we ended up just barely deciding not to do it. And if we had done that, we could have very well just killed Snipe too early. And you said earlier that was meant to be a plus if we killed him before night 6, but I'm not sure if I agree with that, because then we'd have only one night kill, and we'd have to contend with a village with all these protects, and we'd have only one hook. In fact, two out of 3 hook available to us.
Well,
so that.
Okay, well, I think I have one comment about that.
Well, just quickly with regards to I meant outing him rather than necessarily killing him, because if you killed Vaughn and then tried to use the execute on Gollum, the execute wouldn't actually kill him. It would just out him to the Mafia as Gollum. The idea being that you probably don't want that second kill gone just yet.
Wait, hold on a second. So I thought it was that Uller's role would confirm that he is the traitor. So you're saying Billy's extra kill wouldn't have killed him; it just would have outed him.
It would have given him
if Vaughn was dead, it would not have killed him.
Okay, I think that should have. I think that I'm not sure how you could have made that more clear, but that caused a lot of confusion because it really gave us the mindset. Okay, he's someone that we absolutely need to get off. He's probably someone that'd be very dangerous for us to keep alive.
I think that's fair. I think that we could have probably spelled that out more clearly.
And ultimately, I believe after you let's see, how did this work? I think after you use the Orc Execute, I think I did spell out that the traitor was not allied with Middle Earth, because
you did.
That was intended to be sort of obvious from the start, and again, just like with the Samwise Gamgee snippet, it was taken not as I intended it to be taken, which I guess is more of a wording thing on me.
Yeah, the problem was that you said one of your friends, and the Fellowship, they're a team, but I don't know that Frodo would consider.
No. See, I said those closest to him. I intended that to mean the Fellowship members, but I think I guess you guys took it as it did me. I guess, because it was talking about Merry Pippin, but you meant, well, just literally the closest people to him, which, if it's not Sam, it's Merry and Pippin.
So,
but, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask Lightwolf, because I've heard a lot of different stories, and I know one of the big killers, but what exactly caused you guys to not trust me?
Well, honestly, if anything, it wasn't that you changed your role. It was that you felt the need to defend the change of your role, that you misread it. It's not bad. You were like overreacting over a simple misread compared to, say, Paperblade, who similarly had presented himself as with a partial role.
All I
Because
said
he
was that I
originally
probably said that because Aura Guardian got it into my fucking head in the last game, which is true.
Yes,
Um,
but it
like
did
that's
have
whether
over
I was
the
village or wolf. That's exactly how it went down.
yeah,
So,
but it was still the first reason, but I didn't get you to the sheet that I actually created that night.
Yeah, as I recall, the main thing was that you hooked her Scarface.
I know that was the clencher, and that could probably be a bigger discussion. But yeah.
I think honestly, you definitely should have, or not you, Snipe, but Uncle Sam. The hook flavors should have been identical between his.
Well, okay, here's the thing. The hook flavors were identical between Smeagol and the Molpium. But, I mean, I didn't want this to be too overpowered, and maybe I nerfed it a little too much.
Well,
but, on the even nights, the flavors were identical between Merry and Pippin and Smeagol.
So there was only a 50% chance for me to get screwed
to get
over.
fucked.
Yeah, but, I mean, ultimately...
The thing is that, two things. One, it's very unlikely that you're actually going to be, told to hook a villager that would actually out you, in terms of the flavor. And two, I think that, you can kind of, we kind of made it pretty obvious. I think that we actually directly told you, or at least I told Snipe at some point, look, your hook flavor is different depending on if it's an even or an odd night. Definitely take this in consideration about who you're actually hooking.
Well, you should have told me that then.
I don't remember that.
Not that I shouldn't have figured it, because that was a factor.
Yeah.
That was a factor in Yeti's game too, although at least I asked her about it and headed it off and didn't get screwed over that way. But I really have to ask, why do we still have night action flavor? I don't remember the last game where I included that. I'm pretty sure I did in my very first game, but it leads to a lot of host mistakes. It makes it kind of...
You want to talk about host mistakes?
Okay.
You want to talk about host mistakes? Me and Lightwolf got the exact same flavor for our inspection.
That one's on the letter L.
Yeah.
That was so impressive. That was the reason why Lightwolf was like, oh, well, you're obviously village and you're telling the truth because we got the exact same flavor. And there's no other reason that you would get this flavor unless you were telling the truth.
Yeah, okay, so what happened, just to clarify for people, because we're not really making clear exactly what happened. So, since both Lightwolf was the full inspector, or he was the guy who checked if you're a Middle Earth or not. And, and LN was the one who checked for soldiers at Gondor. So, what happened was, on
subsequent nights.
So on night zero, LN was hooked for trying to check Billy Mills by
the Mafia.
Yeah, by the Mafia, by Penguin.
Freak flavor.
Yeah. So then night one, Lightwolf got hooked, or was trying to inspect Billy Mills and got hooked by the same flavor. So of course,
not
I was
just
just
the
like,
same
oh,
flavor.
and
Well, you said, like,
this is the first night that I had to update, so I was just like, oh, I already know what the flavor is, and I don't want to have to try to remake up flavor because I knew that this was kind of a flavor-based game, and I didn't want to like give the wrong flavor, so
Which you
I just
did.
copied the flavor that I gave to
Yeah,
loneliness,
and then you were like,
and then
hey,
just gave it
Lightwolf,
to Light.
when you tried
And
to
I didn't realize
initiate
the fact that
tactics.
in the very beginning it says, as you attempted to, and like there was like something about like gazing upon, like whatever or
No,
something
the
like
thing
that.
was, you gave him as you gave Lightwolf as you attempted to initiate tactics.
That's right.
That's
As you
right.
attempt to initiate tactics. That's right, because that's your inspect flavor.
Can
And
we mention
Lightwolf was
all the
something about
people?
gazed upon blank. And so Lightwolf then would joke in his next night action, I want to gaze upon Ditto, not initiate tactics. So yeah, I got a little bit of shit for that, but yeah.
Yeah, you basically free clean
I basically
me and
confirmed to
Ray.
Lightwolf that Ellen was actually clean because at the time Lightwolf was just continuously messaging me like, "Oh my God, loneliness is the most obvious mafia I have ever seen. There is
don't know
no way that this player is village."
I don't know what you guys are talking about, because like wizards don't gaze at people. Only Sauron gazes at people.
Oh,
Right?
clearly.
Was that intentional,
Let's
Uncle
call in
Sam?
here.
Was that like
No.
really intentional? Because
Okay, so yeah, a little bit. I'm not really sure what you guys would have put Gandalf's flavor as because I mean, if you look up Gandalf, like
No,
it's him gazing.
I explained why it's perfect. Like if you use the flavor from the books, like that's it. Like there's so much between Lord of the Rings and wizards and all other fiction that is about the eyes.
yeah, I think that the reason why it seems so fishy, and I guess it wasn't intentional, but it just ended up being fishy, was because Sauron is a giant goddamn eye.
Yeah,
That's fair.
no,
Very
and
fair.
that actually was unintended, but I do like the way that worked out because I did want Gandalf to be a little distrusted, just like Merry and Pippin, just like anyone else.
Yeah, I was convinced that Lightwolf was bad until we got to talking and he like explained the nature of his role and how it was a rogue and whatnot, and like that all made sense. So I was like, okay, well that's way too intricate of a fake. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
wouldn't.
We didn't even really know.
Bullshit.
Also, he had the same night result that you did.
Yeah, and that's why I was so adamant about like him being Mafia, was because it's like not only does his flavor not work, and I disagree that you would not kill the bodyguard if you have if you fucking know who the bodyguard is if you have no other targets, why not kill the bodyguard? Like it's not like you lose anything for doing it and you have only stuff to gain. You know what I mean? Like I
kill
disagree
him
with
later.
that.
Or hook him with like those
I think we'll get
3-4
to that
months
a
of the
lot
game.
more when we talk about like
Yeah.
the in-game play, about how I think Imanol was like the last power roll that actually got killed off, besides maybe Flame Strike, I think. But
That's correct,
Other than
yeah.
creepy.
Or Paperblade if you count him, I guess.
right, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he was designed to be the last one alive.
Yeah, but
Anyway,
anyway,
just
I
finishing
think
up.
really quickly, I think that we should have Snipe talk about his experience as an orc and like kind of what his thoughts were in terms of like how that helped things, and then I think we should get into like the actual gameplay.
I want to
Yeah.
also finish, like after or before or after Snipe finishes, there are a couple other things I want to mention about
Oh,
the
sure,
whole
go ahead.
mechanic. There's the gripe I mentioned about like the kill and how we were encouraged to do it wasn't the only thing I had. Like there are a lot of other one major thing, but a couple of minor things. So the major thing for me that I thought was really I thought might have been a bit like you've been talking this whole game about your philosophy was basically to really encourage the wolf to act as a balancing factor. And Eddie and I were talking like behind your back, saying, "Oh God, you're favoring the wolf so much." And I thought because you think you deserve to win or something. And I'm sorry for saying something as snarky as that, but but the point is, like, I think you did that, but I think you ended up doing that too well. And the reason that is because you gave him that ability to veto our night act, or requiring our night actions to be unanimous after, like, once we got our backup rules. Like, I thought, and that added extra anxiety to us too. Like we wanted to kill the traitor sooner than.
I just want to point out that we actually had absolutely no intention of giving backup roles in the very beginning. This was something that just we kind of decided like partway through as like, oh, this might be a good idea.
Yeah, I realized that because you didn't give them to us right away. You waited after some point, kind of arbitrary point to give them to us, and you said yeah. And then like Uncle Sam said something about yeah, I probably should have given these you guys sooner or something.
Yeah, no. Okay, so basically the arcs were a 2/3 backup, originally just for Sauron and the kill. But I mean, it makes more sense if you think about it for the arcs to be like a 2/3 version of.
No, I get why it's 2/3, but I don't get why is that it had to be 100% unanimous. Because even after like the wolf was outed, he still had that say in his night actions, which doesn't really.
Okay, the only reason it had to be unanimous was because I didn't want you to be able to check who the traitor was by telling everyone to vote one person and then one person to vote someone else. I didn't want you to basically get a nightly spy check just because of the backup dynamic.
I get that, I'm saying, but after he was outed, though, that was just...
Well, but, like, I can't change the nature of the role just based on what you believe you know.
I understand that it's difficult to do that. I just think that it would have been good. I mean, and it's understandable, as you said, you sort of like you came up with that idea like you didn't intend that in the beginning. But I mean, it would have been better if there was a more elegant way of doing that.
Especially Bass, because like define outed. Like, does everybody know?
As in we know for sure that he's the traitor.
Yeah, but can you ever really know for sure? And if he was quote unquote outed, you get host verification that he is. You know what I mean? And that can.
No, I'm saying in retrospect, like I get what Uncle Sam is saying now, like because of the way he wrote it out in the beginning, that if he suddenly changed it after he was quote unquote outed, then yeah, that wouldn't really be able to work because the host would confirm it. But what I'm trying to say is I think it would have been nice, kind of a wish, but it would have been nice if there was a little bit more elegant way of implementing that. But that said, I can't think of a way off my head. An elegant way to do it.
Can somebody explain how the backup system worked for the orcs?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what happened was the orcs. 2 out of every 3 nights were able to vote on an inspection target and a hook target after Saruman and the Witch King died. And basically, they were just the exact same results. The orc leader would be the user, so in terms of the tracker, or in terms of hooking him, the orc leader, whoever it was at the time, would use these abilities. And the orc vote, like every single orc had to vote for the exact same action in order for it to be evaluated.
Just as a question, when Bass dies, does a new orc become chieftain?
They have to
orcs voted amongst each other.
So why didn't you just? Why instead of having it be like a vote system for the backup roles, did you not just straight give them to Bass?
What do you?
I'm just curious about like the reasoning for that, because that eliminates the ability for them to get host confirmation about Snipe. It seems like all it does is it gives Snipe another way to remain hidden because he gets to vote alongside the other orcs.
The main reason is, well, A, I felt the Mafia was plenty strong enough as it was. B, I felt that I did want the orcs to have some idea of what their own faction is doing. I think they deserve that. I think the wolf deserves that as well.
Your mic is kind of breaking.
Yeah, you just went like away from your mic. I feel like because you just went way low.
Is that any better?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay. So let me repeat that. Basically, being an orc in this game sucked. Maybe even more so than being a soldier of Gondor.
That was the third minor thing I want to mention. Is a lot of the orcs just since I had to be the middleman, I had to deal with bitching from the orcs about and I can't blame them for they had to deal with being bored of the game, and that's the whole reason. Pretty much the main reason that IPL did is pretended to be the traitor because the game was so boring. So I mean, it did help us a little bit, but that was one of his major reasons for doing it.
So the idea basically was that I wanted the orcs to know what their own faction was doing, and I wanted the wolf trader to know what the Mafia was doing, at least with the inspection and with the hook. I felt the Mafia was plenty strong enough as it was to not need basically one roll backup to target whoever they want for an extra hook and inspection 2 out of every 3 nights. Especially if, for example, the orcs didn't even know that the chieftain got those abilities, in which case, that would be an even bigger boon for the Mafia in comparison to the wolf. As well as, I mean, if the Mafia, if the village can kill the Mafia hooker, and then the Mafia still gets to hook 2 out of 3 nights for the rest of the game, then, what's the point? You know what I mean? I want it to be difficult for them to use these roles.
I think I totally find it acceptable to make it that if the chief dies, then yes, we can't use it for that night, and we have until we vote for a new one. I think that totally makes perfect sense. But one other thing I'm kind of wondering about is why you didn't why you didn't decide to make the actions with the backup kill, we were able to designate who does it, but not so with the hook or the inspect, and that meant that Snipe would always if we could never really hook him once all the village power rules were dead, to stop him from killing. So because he'd know instantly who would do it, and then he could just hook that person. So I think that was
no, okay,
I'm wondering
so
about that.
I think there was a little bit of confusion about this. Hooks, you can't hook a hooker. You
can't. I didn't know that. I thought.
Wait, why can you not hook a hooker? Shouldn't whoever has the highest priority win?
Yeah,
you said
having a higher priority hook is actually bad in this case, because having a higher priority hook means that your flavor is shown if you both hook the same person. That's the only priority in terms of hooks that I utilize in my game.
If I'm priority 1 and I hook the priority 2 hooker, the priority 2 hooker still gets to hook?
Yes, but not do anything else. You see
That's awesome.
That doesn't make sense.
Did you make that explicitly known? Because that's really unintuitive.
Why?
No, I had no idea about that.
I didn't either. So I mean, I thought it just simply we were told that Snipe hook was, and that would make sense because he's a wolf. It should be higher, but I was strongly under the impression that we could never hook someone. Is someone muted or is? Oh, sorry. I was under the impression that we could never ever hook Snipe after all the village power rules were dead, because all Snipe would have to do 100% after all the village power rules were dead is just hook our Arch Chief, so we could never interfere with his kills for whatever reason.
Frankly, I didn't want you to be able to interfere with his kills.
I mean, I get that, but after all the village power rules were dead, the game ended up that we did know who Snipe was because of dire circumstances before Paperblade was dead. But in the case that if they were all dead and we still didn't know who he was, I'm starting to ramble on a bit. I think Snipe should really get a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Right
okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the wolf powers, but I'll just let Snipe do that. Snipe was probably maybe the most influential player in this game, so
without a doubt.
Alright, I slept in for a wall raid. I don't remember a whole lot about day 1. I was just a massive clusterfuck. Night 1 happened. I forget if that's one where we decided to kill a villager, and we just killed whoever just seemed the most villager-esque. Because at the time we thought that with the restrict kills, it would be best for me to end up actively trying to kill a Mafia. And when that situation happened, we thought it would be a bad idea to try to go immediately for base, because if we went for base, then it makes sense that whoever wanted to kill base, it'd obviously be the traitor, and theoretically it should have kept on going until the traitor was in a position for power. So instead, what we wanted to do is try to kill the Mafia dude that just seemed the most clean. And at the time, just because of how many subs there were for that role, I thought that it made the most sense to me that person's been inactive for a while, so probably that Fluff Yeti role would have been the most clean from my perspective.
I still regret killing Composite Jump Bluff.
Meh.
It had to be done, but...
They didn't actually think to me to make an anonymous conversation with the Mafia until after BT outed himself, because one, I knew that everybody would try to be anal about using IRC, which I think is a pretty lame tactic, try to figure out who the wolf is based off of just when he's on and when he's talking. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I'm active enough on IRC where it's hard to pin me down, but if by process of elimination you can figure out which ones aren't, it doesn't really help me that much. So the idea for Google Docs was actually probably the most fun I had in the game.
Same for me. Same for me, dude.
I'm surprised that Uncle Sam didn't crack that down, because I don't know. I feel like it kind of undermines the integrity of the. I mean, we're not supposed to have anonymous anything.
This is just offhand, but I was actually looking at some old games I played, and I remembered there was a really old Mafia game called Blindness Mafia that Mecha designed, and he had a neutral in that game whose sole purpose mainly was to hook up with the wolf with the Mafia. He was supposed to be an intermediary, and I thought
I remember winning that game. Weren't we on the same team?
No,
yes.
you were a Mafia. You were the last person that got killed. Well, you were subbed out, but you were basically the last person to get killed in that game. That was the first game I ever led the village, and I'd argue it was.
I'm thinking about Double Alias Mafia, where
that's a different game. I mean, one of the first games I ever led a village. I died early, but I also had almost every Mafia figured out before I died, so it was a village. If it weren't for blindness, it was basically a village steamroll. But the point is, there was interesting neutrals in that game that didn't live up to their full potential for various reasons.
Yeah,
so just mention that.
That was a feature in Billy Mills' IPEC, however you pronounce it, Mafia as well, where Fate Crashers was the neutral Kent Brockman who just needed the village to die, but who I believe knew both the wolf and the Mafia in that game. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it was the same sort of dynamic. Anyway, Snipe.
Trying to remember what happened.
You were up a giant wall of text, so you should have a reference available to you in the thread.
Can't be fucking
if you forgot. Are you tired? Or?
Yeah, I've had a really long day.
So have I. I'm still energized for some reason.
I feel bad for Snipe. He had a long day, guys.
Yeah.
Let me think. Which one was night 3? Okay, so I think that was the point where I started talking. Oh yeah, that was also the night where IPL got bored and decided to out himself.
That was not night 3, dude. That was later. It was after Ditto got killed. So I don't remember. I think it was night 5 or night 6, maybe. I'm trying. It was
still
midday.
Relatively early though.
Well, yeah, early because the game was
anyway. It was fairly, it was close to then. It was early. It was still pretty early in the game. It was night 4, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That was probably, in my opinion, the best play an orc had ever made. I mean, it was also IPL's idea earlier that base shouldn't have taken any consideration from any of the orcs because we were all suspects, which I thought made sense, and my main priority was to stay alive, especially once Vaughn died. And I think I really misplayed in that I tried really hard to hide myself from the Mafia when I should have been also trying to hide myself from the village, which became more apparent during the later half of the game. I'm trying to think about what else happened. Just collaboration between what I knew and what the rest of the Mafia knew.
I'm not gonna lie, Snipe. I got so pissed off later in the game as a spectator, because I always in games that I actually try, I usually watch pretty religiously up until the end. I was so pissed off when Metal Sonic was only scum writes long messages, and then the next day Metal Sonic died, and then somebody off the cuff just was well, Snipe's pretty obviously Wolf, and then no one followed up on that at all. And it was what the fuck, guys? The guy knows what he's talking about. Listen to him. Let's follow up on this. And you were just nah, man, that ain't me. That ain't me. and
it really ain't me. I mean,
yeah,
we just thought he was annoying, so we just
reasonable.
That's pretty much
the only person that was opposing you was mysteriously killed at night by the wolf, and everybody's just like, makes sense. Like,
Yeah. At that point, though, I think it was like reaching endgame, and I really stopped caring because when I tried to make attempts to the village to try to get them to lynch Billy, like they didn't want to do it. And well, if they were really that against me, I didn't really think I had much of a chance, so I just said fuck it and didn't really want to give the village another free win out of like the past 3 games that have happened. I don't remember a whole lot much about the game, just a lot of bitching to deal with.
I'm just wondering, because you say a lot of things like about like how you did some of your actions out of pity, and I'm just going to say for the record that I was 100% in agreement that no matter what would happen, I would do everything in my power. Like if we could not get a 100% win, I would definitely support like bringing it to a kingmaker between you and me. Basically, I was definitely one. You said you weren't sure if you were going to go through with that, but I was 100% sure that I was going to do that if we couldn't get 100%
okay,
win.
I feel really annoyed at that view because it's like, okay, the Mafia acts as a group, so any individual poor play is kind of like downplayed, but the very nature of the village leads to like 4 or 5 people being good and the rest being like mediocre, and mediocre play in the village is detrimental to the village in almost all cases. So it gives an impression that the village like didn't play well, when in reality, yeah, they didn't play well, but they didn't play bad. You know what I mean?
I think that I don't really understand where the idea that the village played the worst out of the factions is coming from, because every group made very serious mistakes.
I don't disagree on that key point because that's 100% true. But there's also the fact that this path that I want to take, it gave my team a chance of winning, so that's another reason to do it.
I mean, the village in this game played better than the village in Everybody Votes and got screwed less than the villages in Aklo's big game.
Aklo made a big game?
Yeah, he did.
What was the theme?
Smug on
Smoke on Mafia.
Mafias.
Okay, yeah, I didn't like that Mafia. I kind of forgotten
That game
kinda
deserves a
forgotten
post
that
game.
game
I swear that
existed.
Aklo and I will get around to that at some
That game
point.
was rigged, man.
Wasn't that the game? Was Smug on Mafia the game where like I gained a whole bunch of information and then people were like, no, and then Billy Mills like fucked me over because we were in such a good position?
No, Billy
that was
Mills got
actually-
dumped out immediately.
That was
Because
the game where
There was a game where my faction was like super far ahead, and then oh no, that was Pokemon Mafia. That was the second
Yeah,
Pokemon
Pokemon
Mafia.
Pokemon Mafia with
No,
that
I mean,
was the
the
word.
Smoke on Mafia was the game where I was one of the village leaders, and I didn't trust you at all because our village makeup was the weirdest
now I
fucking thing
remember.
ever.
The Smug on Mafia was the Mafia
two
where I was like, this is the most retarded village I have ever been a part of, and I was just
Yeah.
like fucking
Dude.
done.
The pretty chill guys gotta have 2 freezers.
I think we should stop. I think we should get back.
Let's get back. Okay, let's talk about the gameplay, guys.
And I also want to apologize for my misguided view I said a couple minutes ago. I understand where you guys are coming from a little bit more.
All right, yeah, let's start talking about like kind of how the game played out in terms of, activity, in terms of like, kind of how things went in terms of night actions and in terms of, some of the early knock, I guess, because that seemed to be like really the only part where that actually kind of played into anything.
One quick question: are we going to talk about individual players at all, like in Ellen's postgame? Because if we did, I don't think we'd have enough time before Ellen has to leave. So
I think we'll mention them along the way. I don't think we can just go player by player.
I mean,
let's mention them like as they die, maybe, and then like if there's something notable to say about them.
People who played outstandingly bad or well are going to reveal themselves as we go through each cycle.
Right.
Okay.
I think that we're just going to go through each cycle, see who died when, and then as like when we talk about like when they died, we can mention like, oh, how'd they play before that.
That's fine.
Okay. Alright, so let's see then. Starting right off at the top, Night Zero. I think the only really interesting thing that happened Night Zero was that Lightwolf inspected Von Fiedler,
Which is hilarious.
at the time was a great break for the Wolf, obviously, because Von had that mole roll, which meant that he showed up as Merry and Pippin on inspection, or, well, to Gandalf, he showed up as Middle-earth, which meant that Lightwolf... I really feel that if Vaughn had stepped up day one, said, "I'm Merry Pippin, I'm the hooker, claim to me," no one would have seriously opposed him. I think it was just...
I kind of wish I would have, but I was just too busy. Like, honestly,
He couldn't be fucked, is what he's saying.
I am basically right now a community contributor whose only job is to play in other people's Mafia games. So I'm doing that. Mission accomplished.
I think if you did that, it would have been similar. Like, we would have tried to kill you just for playing Merry and Pippin like before, but you might have had like protection. I think that's the key difference there.
Yeah. No. I died. Me dying was totally my fault because I was too village, and I was too village in that I was using insider information.
Yeah, that was our major
people.
reason, honestly.
And I even had good reads on some people that I wasn't supposed to know about. So yeah, I was really hoping I would get Lightwolf to bodyguard me, but then stuff transpired that I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about day one, which is like day one is when Lightwolf claimed, and
No.
Day one?
That was day two. That was day two. Day
Nothing
one
was day one. Literally nothing.
Everything before. Everything before.
Let's slow down, guys.
I'm sorry. Everything before the big debate between me and Lightwolf is kind of boring.
Well, I think that the Iron Canyon play was pretty interesting. I think we should talk about that. So unfortunately, so what happened with the Iron Canyon is when we all sent out role PMs, what ended up happening was Uncle Sam and I would be in every single PM that we were sending out instead of just like one of us or what have you. We'd both be in PM. So when we sent out the Rohirrim PM to TIK, it was me, like Sam, me, and the Iron Canyon in this PM. And during the Night Zero, the Iron Canyon messaged me something about like, oh, I think that there's probably like more Rohirrim like than just than just two. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that would make sense that there's more than just two. But I didn't think anything of it because it wasn't like implying that I was his teammate at the time. But as things progressed, it became incredibly obvious that the Iron Canyon believed that I, as the co-host, was his teammate. So of course he posts about this, and then everyone believes that he's clearly lying scum, who is like the worst person, like the worst human being ever. And they decided to all gang up on the Iron Canyon, and then he was lynched. And I do want to say that his posts were actually pretty good, and that in the very end, he actually just basically hammered out like 3 Mafia, just being like, yo, these people are really obviously Mafia, and I think he nailed every single one of his things. So I do want to give him credit for that. So.
I just like to point out, I think that while, like Ellen said, that day was boring, it is that day was interesting in the sense that it was probably the only day that the village, well, I guess day one maybe too, but where the village had any real serious discussion and was trying to use like the NOC style play and make reads on people. So I think that was sort of probably, at least to that extent, like that was how Uncle Sam probably intended most of the game, I'm assuming.
Maybe I think it's boring because I don't like knock, and I think I made that.
Well, none of us do.
During every single day.
Most of us don't, honestly. Like you don't.
No one likes NOC.
No one likes NOC. It's just boring. It's fucking boring.
Okay, so let's see. Ular Warlord stepped up as Bilbo Baggins the mayor, and incredibly believable claimed that got, I believe, 13 villager claims.
By the way, the reason he did that wasn't necessarily to lead the village. it was to actually hope that the traitor might be stupid and claim to him. Although, of course, that obviously was not going to happen. But it ended up. But because he got so many claims out of that, like I honestly think that even though he acted like a loose cannon after that, it did help us more than hurt us in the end.
Yeah,
I think.
no, I think that his play was definitely really good in the sense that, one, it outed Eagle 4 to you guys, and it outed Rodan to you guys,
Yeah,
which were pretty important
absolutely.
power roles, and they would not have, you guys would not have known about them without for Uller's play. And I think that,
Totally agree with that.
and I think
And
that the
also
night one kill on
very
Rodan was
strong.
pretty huge, and I think that the later on the knowledge of Eagle 4 ended up helping you guys as well. So.
Yeah,
well,
I do agree that, like, this is the annoying thing to me is because, like, as soon as he posted, I told everybody not to claim to him because Bilbo is, like, a pretty dubious claim, just given the scope of the game. Like, not only does he have ties to wanting the ring, like, but also it's just name-worthy enough to where it seems like it's like Eowyn or
Right,
you know
right.
what I
You,
mean?
you said this in your conversation with Snipe, and I mentioned it earlier, but that was a major reason. Like, besides some of the scummy actions, like some of our leaders actually did, like Ditto in his case, like trying to lynch me supposedly because of Navidar. Like, just because like the actual safe claims we were given didn't actually fit with the rest of the village rules, that made him a little bit easier to figure
Yeah,
out.
it's like you have a name which gives you, like, oh, I'm a named villager, but you're like not really part of the main storyline, so like why the hell are you even here? It's
Yeah,
like,
so basically the idea with the Mafia safe claims was the Mafia leaders were given safe claims that were like the quality of which improved as the importance of the Mafia rose. So basically the leader, which I consider to be the least important, Shelob, got the worst claim, Bilbo the mayor, because I mean the village had a built-in mayor. Why would they have an extra mayor on top of that? And so then the Witch King got Eowyn the BTV, which actually did sort of fit if and here's where I think I messed up. I should have given them Denethor as sort of an extra Gondor role as well.
well, I mean, you know that I personally was expecting Denethor to be a Mafia safe
I
claim.
remember that.
I was like, there's no way because Billy was Boromir, so I figured it was 2 named roles per faction.
Yeah,
plus
plus third safe claim.
1 safe claim.
What I actually should have done is I should have had a real Denethor as like a lawyer role, like something that's really easy to distrust, and then had Boromir be the safe claim, so that it is like 2 out of 3, just not the same 2.
Right.
So, here's what I'm wondering. Like, I was reflecting at the end of the game. Like, I think besides Billy, who had Boromir, and not to mention we inspected Flame Strike, so we knew like a good way to write that flavor of all team like bodyguard. I'm wondering like if the leaders, like all the other leaders besides Billy, should have just claimed like vanilla, like just like the orcs did, and I'm wondering if that would have made them more difficult.
Yeah, probably. I mean, if Ditto had claimed Elrond, I think that might have been okay because Fellowship Checkers, it sort of fits with the dynamic of the village. But yeah, I agree that many of the named claims were much easier to sift through than just, the sea of, hi, I'm Rohirrim, hi, I'm Soldier of Gondor. And I mean, how do you distinguish there other than getting inspection results or
And
actually getting
name,
discussion?
obviously. Like, Billy was a pick by Ellen. I want to know if I was also picked, like, to be Rowan expected just because, how in the hell is base just a villager? It doesn't make sense. Like, why would Uncle Sam do that?
Well, Zorby's was Villager as well.
That's true, but I'm just wondering if that was the reason for doing it.
I mean, I tried to make enough, sort of like high-profile players, standard villagers, that it wasn't unusual to see, any particular player being a villager.
That's why you should just randomize at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, you just randomize.
I see. The thing is, I don't like randomize because you can.
Vaughn's game. See RBG getting Inspector. Well, I don't know if that was random, but I mean, you should never give RBG an important role if you know his Mafia history. That's what
That was random, and I wasn't really aware that of RBG. I'm not sure if he's ever been in one of my games.
Yeah, that's
but
unfortunate that you weren't
he's
aware
a
of that.
recognizable enough name that I thought, oh, RBG.
Yeah. I think
It's
we
not
lost
bad.
Porterell, by the way.
You get disconnected, he's up on back.
Sorry?
You got disconnected, so he's hopping on back.
Okay.
I'm back on.
Okay, so...
Oh, no, hold on. I do want to, just going back to Ular, I am so annoyed because his claim was so dubious, it just pisses me off how many people claim to him. It's like, you can claim fucking anything in Smogon Mafia, and people will just rush to give you information. It's so annoying. Like,
The thing is, I put in the rules too, don't just claim to people. Like, now, that was mostly intended for Smeagol, or, just so that everyone didn't claim to marry Pippin. But, like, I mean, still, the thing is that it wasn't just that 3 power roles claimed to him, it was that something like 10 villagers claimed to him, which made it much easier to rand who the few hidden roles were. So, for example, Ray Scarface and Xenu were among the first randed kills out of, the pool of unknown people. So, basically, it didn't just result in the people who claimed a power role dying, it also resulted in the people who were less likely to be villagers dying later on as well.
And not only that, but because I thought people would not be fucking morons and claim to Ular, that's why I thought Lightwolf was bad, because I thought Lightwolf is the one that people are going to claim to, like, not Ular, so I thought he was the reason why Gimli died. So, like, it's just annoying. Like, if there can be a public service announcement right now to people watching this, stop claiming Night 1 to the first jackass to say, hey, claim to me. Like, I know that, my old gimmick was claim to me, people... It's stupid. Stop doing it. I only did it because people were so stupid and would, like, claim to me. Like...
Yeah, except that you claimed this guy in Superhero Mafia.
It's just really fucking annoying. Like, that it not just that it happens, but it just keeps happening. We've had Smogon Mafia for like 10 years, and nothing ever changes. People still claim to people Night fucking Zero. Like, you would think after a decade. You would think after a decade people would stop, Uncle Sam. You would think. Like, it's a decade.
Anyway, I just want to apologize for disconnecting.
No one even noticed you were gone.
Yeah.
Yay.
I did. I mentioned it.
Okay. Well, so I missed calling Ditto L round. I missed that.
He was very proud of that, by the way. He really
the L round play was
insisted on being. He insisted. Yeah. Ditto was generally hilarious this game. I'll give him that credit for that at least.
Ditto's always hilarious. What are you talking about?
I love Ditto.
I know. I'm saying in general.
He's the
I don't give him enough credit for being hilarious. Like even in like base game, like where he finds loopholes in my rules.
You took away his cute avatar. How could you?
You gotta play a little bit of...
Rules are rules. No exceptions.
All right. Well, so get back to where you guys were. I have no idea where you are.
We were on day 1.
Okay. I think we're pretty much to night 1 now. So night 1, Rodan was a pretty obvious kill because he had claimed Gimli, which was by far the most high profile of the named roles that I guess they could have killed
Eagle 4 as well, but I mean you pretty much
those two.
Yeah, sorry.
And actually, Eagle 4 ended up blocking like 3 of your kills later on, so it might have been better to kill him. But in any case, you guys killed Rodan, and I believe the wolf killed Agape, however you say that.
Yeah, I think it's Agape.
It's Agape, yeah, like the form of love from Latin, whatever. Anyway, so...
I still prefer calling it Agape and just leaving my mouth open.
Well, his logic is Agape all the time. Anyway,
Okay.
so let's see. So we went into day 2 with a big discussion about why Rodan died. People pretty much agreed that a gate was pretty much a rand, which it was. But a lot of people thought that Rodan had claimed Lightwolf. So I guess Lightwolf must have stepped up during night 1. Yeah, he stepped up as Gandalf night 1, and this was a hilariously unfortunate thing for Ular, is that I believe basically what happened was no, sorry, I'm confusing this for night 2. But what I was talking about was the Hobbit champion thing, where he claimed that if all the hobbits vote with him, he gets a triple vote, which then Vaughn died with the 1.5 vote, so it looked like all the evidence was pointing to Ular being Vaughn's teammate, basically. But that was day 3, not day 2. Day 2 was the day where they lynched. Who did you guys lynch?
We lynched
Was it
Vaughn.
Billy busted for whatever
It was
reason.
it was
Acklow, yeah.
Vaughn was pushing it kind of, and then I think we know Billy obviously doesn't like Acklow very much, and he didn't mind the potential to bust his own teammates. But I should say we didn't mind it personally because there were a lot of us, and it would be a chance to potentially just a very unlikely scenario, but just because of the whole traitor thing, we wouldn't care about busting at that moment in the game, really.
Yeah.
I think that
I actually think that I think that Vaughn might have started it, and then I think that Snipe kind of going onto it kind of put the nail in the coffin. I think that Snipe, you were saying that you were kind of doing it mostly just kind of put pressure on him. I think.
I was trying to actually appear as a cleaner Mafia, if that makes sense. By trying to get Ackla something to talk about, and then Billy and Vaughn just nitpick something about him and just do that.
I was right.
He said
I knew I was right.
He said something really silly, to be fair.
Yeah, he had a really unusual reaction to something, and I don't remember what it was. So I'm gonna go back and check the thread.
It was one of the 2 being evil. No, wait, that was someone else. I don't recall.
I think I'm going to check as well.
Sorry, what are we checking now?
We're checking why Acklo wasn't.
What he actually posted? You mean that made him look really funny? It was something about the orc vote, I think. Not pretend. Was it? I think it was something about not knowing how it works. But even though it was flat out posted how it works in the thread, so.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Because he was trying too hard to seem in the dark, even though everybody should know how the orc vote works.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the light wolf loneliness debate began.
God, that was just so annoying because it was basically just Lightwolf saying "nuh-uh" and me going "yuh-huh," and
as Lightwolf debates tend to go.
that is literally how when you boiled it down, it was Lightwolf going "nuh-uh" and me going "yuh-huh." And then I was losing, and I was like, this is not fair. His nuh-uh is not any more valid than my yuh-huh.
I'm Gandalf. So it was.
I actually thought Lightwolf was Mafia, and it was starting to look like that last Village Mafia game where Zorby's just led, and I thought he was getting rid of his more vulnerable teammates to put himself in a better position of power.
I've stumbled upon Gelmont Saltfest now. I'm still looking for where I called out Acklo.
Yeah.
You quoted him and you said he's not helping his case or something. I don't remember.
Well, I think basically with the traitor dynamic, Billy thought there was some chance Aklo was the traitor, and so pretty much everyone wanted.
I mean, he's scummy anyway. Might as well like try to look village, like use that opportunity. I think it was justifiable, honestly.
This was
At
sort of
that
like
point in the game,
our
anyway.
from Mafia 2 thing, which is that literally everyone in the game wanted him dead, and so why not just kill him basically. I'm referring to where I believe both the village and or what was that?
Where is this hatred for Aklo? Because I've never had a problem with
I
him.
don't know the. I mean, I wasn't really around the Mafia.
Oh
too
yeah.
much when
Okay.
Billy played with him a lot, but
Jalmont and I got into a big fight, and I don't even remember what that was all about, but I was just trying to act village, and Jalmont was being really salty for some reason. But then Aklo comes in, and he's like, if Jalmont dies, I guess everybody will know that Von Fiedler is Mafia.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I was like, what? That's an awful specific way for that to go.
Yeah, but I think the reason Billy Mills specifically dislikes Aklo is that during Smog on Mafia, basically Aklo forgot to randomize the player list, or I think it was the alias list, so that the aliases were grouped by faction.
Oh, yeah.
And Billy Mills noticed it and and Aklo forcibly subbed him out over it. And then
that's like Billy would always say like these random things about how like Aklo was proud of his idiocy or something, and I didn't really understand it at the time because like I had like almost no experience playing with him. The only thing I can like have slightly against him was he was a little bit lazy, like in like Best Game 3 a couple moments, but it's I wish Billy were here and he could comment on this more. It's kind of unfortunate.
I don't know. I like Aklo. I like Aura Guardian. I don't see a reason to be really salty with people unless they're just dickholes like some people are.
There's so many Aura Guardian haters.
I want to be the record. I don't hate anyone on this one.
Well, I had to play on a team with Aura Guardian in Electro Mafia, so I had to play on a team where he was the only one with me, so I kind of get it now.
He's tough to negotiate with.
He's a really good.
Best Lynch.
He is a really good Dungeons and Dragons player. I'll say that much.
Fair enough. All right, let's stop talking about like.
We'll talk more about the Aura Guardian thing later.
And our game of other smoking players. We should like get back to the game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Alright.
night two was the night where they killed Von Fiedler, and I subbed in Yeti/Jumpluff for
on long numbers or whatever.
Yeah, it was
and
on
that person, he was subbed in for another random, I think. So
And
that
literally
1-2-1-2.
I will say this, Uncle Sam, like, from now on, I'm not subbing in other people for Mafia, because subs instantaneously look Mafia. Because no one gives a shit if a villager, like, is idling and fucking about, but, like, an idling Mafia player instantly, like, an idling Mafia player fucks the Mafia completely over. So, like, I would just, if you were gonna sub for a Mafia, just in the future, just let somebody from the Mafia take over their role. You know what I mean? Like, and just
I don't think I agree with that. Just because, like, I subbed in people for both teams this game. I think
you did.
idlers can, screw over any team.
Yeah, but Mafia complains about it more than Village ever notices that someone is inactive. They will push for the sub more.
Yeah, but, like...
I don't understand what you just said, Lightwolf.
They said that Mafia will push for the sub more than the Village, since the Village will hardly notice that one or two of their members are simply inactive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so the thing is, I didn't sub out on long numbers at the request of the Mafia. I subbed out people who weren't posting during the day, period. I wasn't subbing out anyone because of a push to get...
Well, you didn't sub out Soviet, who never posted.
Yeah, who literally
at all.
never posted.
He was on IRC.
He was on IRC and was
active at
active
night.
in Org Chat and was active in Resistance, so we were like, I guess we don't need to sub him.
Chill, dude. I don't mind. that he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he should have posted in the day, but I can't.
The reason I didn't sub out Soviet was because he was clearly active and his idling was clearly some sort of strategy.
Right. That
I'm
other
not-
guy that you subbed out was definitely not active in any sense of the word whatsoever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I only subbed out people who clearly were not paying attention to the game. Like one person, I think it was day 3, it was Rextreff, I think. I sent him a PM saying, like activity prod, and the comment was, pokes with stick to see if alive. And he sent me a PM back like the next day that said, wait, the game is still going on?
That's perfect.
I didn't even respond to it. I just subbed him out because, at that point, you're so clearly not trying to play the game that it doesn't matter what team you're on. It's a waste of a roll, basically. And I mean, I don't think that subs indicate which team they're on. Maybe in a forum game that's completely outside communication where posting in the thread isn't as big a deal. Maybe subs indicate that someone is Mafia a little more.
Yeah,
but
I just think in the grand scheme of things, like over the course of every single game that has ever been played, subs are more routinely Mafia.
Yep. I also think that the village could have drawn upon the fact that people who are literally never posting and are not being subbed are probably Mafia because they're probably doing something in terms of talking to people.
They were able to figure that out at least after the village leadership crumbled. Like they realized, okay, Upside and Soviet and Cancerous are obviously scummy because they haven't posted at all.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that in that sense, I think that the lack of subbing was more indicative than a sub would be. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the amount of information that you get from it is minimal and it's not universal. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's anything that you can really change about it other than just be kind of conscious of don't just sub in someone just because the Mafia is saying to, and don't just do it at a really weird time. But I think that we handled it pretty well this game.
Oh, by the way, one other funny story I want to mention, when Jumpluff was subbed in, we were actually playing Resistance, and Jumpluff was panicking to me in private chat, and he was base, Lightwolf's asking me for a claim in the middle of a fucking game, and the person he subbed in for, there was a PM I sent to all the orcs earlier on instruction, it was meant to help the new players to figure out what to say when claiming to someone and how exactly you should claim, and Jumpluff didn't get that, so she didn't know what to claim, so she was delayed, and on top of playing Resistance, delayed in response to Lightwolf. And I made this really suspicious comment in the middle of the game saying I was responding to a long email or something, and I'm not sure if anyone caught on to the fact that I was talking to Jumpluff first, but that's what was really happening.
Yeah, so there's actually a really funny log. If you look at the logs for Postgame doc that I shared with I shared the link for, and I'll share it again now.
Oh yeah, are you talking about the part where you were inviting all the Mafia, basically, besides Lightwolf, to Resistance, and you know about it, Billy better be Mafia, or Billy's gonna be noticing.
She was super paranoid because she was if Billy Mills isn't Mafia, he's gonna read into this and just see right through me. And what am I supposed to say to that? Because yes, he is Mafia, but I can't tell you that. But yeah, that was actually a lot of fun because we were all playing Resistance. It was Villager, Lightwolf, and the entirety of the Mafia, and Snipe, I think. So there was a lot going on behind the scenes there, which was kind of fun to see. Anyway, so night 2, Vaughn got killed by the Mafia, and who got killed by the wolf? It was
Jumpluff, right?
Yeah, Yeti slash Jumpluff. That was really unfortunate. That was 30 seconds after they subbed in. Snipe PM'd me on IRC and was changing kill to Yeti slash Jumpluff. And I was well, I'm sorry, there's nothing I really could have done about that.
You could have given us anonymous forums.
It happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens. Cool rolls die early. And this
Cool.
isn't even a cool roll, but
Yeah.
I mean, after that, oh, sorry, go on.
Their death is like the biggest, like, this is why we have anonymous forums kind of like reason.
I mean, but
that-
Uncle Sam said that name kills were a thing like to be expected, so it didn't.
I know.
It was just that they subbed in. That role was subbed
I know
in
that you like
so
said
often.
that name kills were.
What happened?
Fuck is that?
Did Ellen just
Yeah,
die?
it's like a cow mooing or something.
Yeah, I just died for a split second. No, anyway, I know that like name kills you said were a thing, and that like that was okay. I just
Yeah.
don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but, like, I just wanted this game... Overall, the goal for this game was to be accessible to people who had not played Small Gun.
I totally understand that. That makes sense. It didn't play out that way in the end, unfortunately, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that there were a few people,
agree.
newer users who were somewhat involved, but yeah, this was certainly not as immersive as I had hoped it would be because the village leader system was employed with, I mean, I would say questionable success because I think ultimately, while it looked successful, it was one of the main contributors to the eventual village loss. Just the fact that it killed discussion and...
No, see, that is one thing I disagree with. I think that the reason the village lost was because we ran out of inspection rolls. That is...
Well, but see, like, in a normal NRC game, you get, like, 2 inspection. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to rely on inspecting someone to figure out that they're Mafia.
Yeah, but see, like, if people are playing just at a base competent level, scum hunting, quote unquote, like NOC scum hunting, is like guessing. It's guessing is what it is. You know what I mean? Like if
But and here's the thing where I think you guys could have done more. Well, you never used the Rohirrim, which could have been used as a 1/2 Rohirrim check that couldn't be killed off.
Yeah, I agree. That is something that is a mistake, and I found through Mafia, like people just are inherently like they're inherently wary of using village kills that out villagers, even though the Mafia knows who isn't a Mafia. So like, there's no advantage to not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a like, oh, I don't want to out myself. Yeah, it's a mental block that it's just there's just a hesitation with using those types of roles because like Street Justice didn't get used until like Night 5, which I thought was ridiculous. Like I thought it was going to be used way sooner than that. It's just,
but keep in mind that was because Mecha the Wolf was in control of it, and also keep in mind this Rohirrim didn't get used once the entire game.
Yeah, that is true too.
Night 5 is one thing, but like.
Although there were like hardly any of them left, and it was easy to use at that point. That I'm kind of scratching my head about a little bit.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't happen just like by accident. Like, you know what I mean? Like when there was like 2 more guys left, they just, one of them just like happens to not vote along with the crowd, and he like accidentally kills someone. Like I was surprised that didn't happen.
It actually did almost happen, I think, on one of the later days where there were 2 Rohirrim left, but I think that basically what happened was if one of the Rohirrim had voted who the rest of the villagers were voting, it would have gone through, but he just idled instead. But I think at that point, it was too late in the game for the Rohirrim to realistically make much of a difference. I think that if the village had wanted to just run over this game without, any diplomacy, without trying to convince people to crossfire, they really had to make good use of the Rohirrim rolls. And
I actually like that kind of design. I feel like the village should have all of the tools to win themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
like, I agree with your philosophy that, like, if they wanted to win, then they should have been using the Rohan and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want the village to be able to steamroll without ever working with anyone else, but I want them to be able to if they play their cards well, if that makes sense.
I feel like most games, or most people who design games, generally agree that if a village plays perfectly, then they should win. Because they have the burden of not knowing all their members, and it just generally kind of makes more sense that they are kind of the ones that, by default, get the win if, if all things equal, they're playing. Like, if everyone's playing perfectly, the village should, by kind of default, win.
Yeah.
Lightwolf was like, I disagree.
No, I just want to talk about the many reasons why we didn't actually end up using the Rohirrim. Well, for one, we believed in the whole linchpin thing, so we didn't want to reveal a whole.
Oh, that is true, because
that's a good point. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we like told Flamestrike and Ray Scarface that we wouldn't use the Rohan because we didn't want their linchpin faction to be unfairly outed versus the rest of us. Like, Gondor and Middle Earth didn't have to ever out themselves, and they were like, well, if we use the Rohan, then we're like fucked come linchpin. That's not cool.
So I think it's about time we talk about, like, this is when Ular gets lynched. I think we should really talk about why that happens, and we were about to talk about it, but we deferred it. So I think we should.
Guys, I'm gonna call it a night. My brother's getting really tired, and I'm keeping him up. So, night, guys.
Okay. Good night.
Ellen has to go too, so I think he said he'd leave it on for us to.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the stream on so that you guys can.
Yeah, honestly, let's go through a little quicker. How much longer do you have, Ellen?
I actually have to go right now. It's 10:45.
Okay. All right.
But you and Vass are more than. I'm gonna leave the stream up, but you and Vass are more than welcome to, because I'm sure that it's interesting to some people and they want to listen. Like, it doesn't hurt anything to leave the stream up and have you guys wax nostalgic about the game.
It's a bit unfortunate you have to leave this soon, but alright. Thanks anyway.
We've been talking for a while. Yeah. Okay. Peace. Alright, so day 3 then. Ular gets the...
I actually officially do not know the exact story. All I really know vaguely what happened was Ular basically was behaving very aggressively with Lightwolf, to my knowledge, and that sort of like raised a very big red flag. And then he just did a very poor job of defending himself when the time came.
Yeah, basically...
No, the thing is, Ular, for whatever reason, just started trying to vouch to Lightwolf for me.
Yeah.
There's that
told
too.
Lightwolf to sheet me, and then that night I died and was a wolf with a partner wolf, as it was revealed.
Yeah, and the thing is, thing indicates...
Pidge wants to join with Sam.
Who?
Pidge. A bunch of people left.
Yeah. Sure. I don't know if we can add while Ellen is away.
I think you can join himself.
Yeah, if you link it, then it's kind of public.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot. Elo is still here, so we still have Village to talk. That's good.
Do you want me to link it, or?
It's this long ass link, but I'll sure.
Till that, I may as well explain how exactly it went down. Basically, Orlar came to me asking for sheet access. And when I refused him, because, well, his role was Bilbo of all things, he went, okay, then at least that from Fiddler. And I was like, hell no. And, well, then we pretty much argued in the open, within the channel itself, and, well, everyone who saw that in the end went against Orlar because he was being unreasonable.
Yeah, it was just a really unfortunate set of circumstances where he thought Vaughn was clean, and he also claimed that Hobbit champion role, champion being a triple vote, where then Vaughn was revealed to have a 1.5 vote, so it was assumed that, well, he must have the other 1.5 vote, which would also work with his stated Hobbit thing because Vaughn is claiming a Hobbit.
Yeah.
And it would also draw out Frodo and Sam to vote with him, which would be great for the wolf. So it was just a really unfortunate set of circumstances.
Yeah, but I want to keep in mind that Billy was warning him a lot about keeping his emotions in check. And Uller himself acknowledged that this, at least this aspect of his play was his fault. But I still think he did. I still think he did more good than bad overall. I want to reiterate that point at least.
Yeah,
Have we become too fucking salty in Mafia? Like I've been
We
noticing
really have.
that.
Absolute. I mean, I'm not. Well,
Like I've been a jerk at times. Like I feel like that's I used to act stupid all the time, and now I'm a community contrib, and I was just like, I'm done with that. But now I'm just an asshole to everyone as the replacement.
there's
I
like
feel like a lot of
friendly-
people have gone towards just always being nice, and some people are just naturally mean. And as a result, what you get is like a lot of people who make fun of people for making any type of mistake, and a lot of people who just sort of like don't talk about it and are sort of like passive aggressive. And it's a weird dynamic, I guess, that isn't necessarily healthy for newer players, because they're basically picking between.
it makes Mafia seem more clicky too to them. And
I
makes
don't-
it less accessible.
I don't agree with picking clean newer players, but I've known some newer players who I just hated. More recently than I used to, because I never really used to.
That'll happen because as you improve at Mafia, your perspective on other people's play is that their level of play is diminished, basically, and people tend not to like people who make mistakes that affect them in a game. I think that's overall by far the most important aspect of other players from one's own perspective.
Yeah.
Anyway, so night 3 then.
Yeah. I think no, we're not that. We're not the paranoid night yet. That's next one. So
Night 3 is the first attempt to kill Eagle 4 and the
yeah. In hindsight, we probably should have thought about it a bit more because we had to figure that now that Uller was outed officially, that Eagle 4 would say something to Lightwolf. Oh, by the way, I claimed to him, so that would make him we should have realized he'd be a very obvious protect target, but.
Yeah, he was protected by Legolas, and the Jean-Marc kill went through, so that wasn't horrible. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but in balancing this game numbers-wise, I assumed that the village would block 6 kills. That was the magic number where I thought if the village blocked 6 on the button, that was average. If they blocked less, it would be harmful to their chances to win, and if they blocked more, it would be good for them, taking into account Paper Blade's self-protection.
I think it makes sense.
How many did we block?
Sorry?
How many did we block in the end?
I think only 4 or 5. Because you blocked 1 with Legolas, you blocked 2 with Eagle 4, and you blocked 1 with the Stealth Omni Guard on Paper Blade. The thing is that you never bodyguarded. Well, the problem was that Rodan died night 1. Every night bodyguard, as well as the mass protects being known, which meant that it was much easier to hook them.
So I think that even considering that though, in that sense, getting 4 or 5 protect stuff, considering that we knew 2 bodyguards down that early, that's still very good. I think, all things considered.
Yeah, it's not bad. 4 is certainly
much worse. Yeah.
To win, but when I was balancing the game numbers-wise, I felt that 6 was.
I understand why you think that.
The number they were shooting for. Of course, I also thought that 3 Mafia kills with the Rohirrim was the number they were shooting for. They didn't get any there either. So you know, I mean, not everything goes as planned, basically. In any case, so day 4, I think, was the first day where the lynch really was basically just lynch this person, and then 10 posts lynching that person followed, and then I just called early majority.
Actually, that was the day, wasn't it, where
Penguin 344 got lynched.
yeah, and like both Ditto and Salawar made it pretty obvious that they were Mafia, constantly questioning my lynch. So I already knew Ditto being Mafia.
Ditto and his scummy post against me. Unfortunate. That was unfortunate. But again, there's also the claims too. It wasn't just their actions. Penguin 4 was more his claim. Ditto was his actions, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, so...
Are we going to go to night 4? Because there's a lot to talk about this night.
Night 4 is amazing.
Night 4 was really disastrous for the Mafia. It was the night where, basically, so a number of things happened this night. The first is that the Mafia set up a channel called Echo Chamber, where
I should just talk about everything. Sorry to interrupt, but I think I should just talk about everything that we did in response to, like, because we neglected to mention several things other nights, like all that were meant to find out who the traitor was. A lot of these were mainly Billy's and Penguin's ideas for doing it, and so the first thing we decided to do was to set up a separate channel for the orcs. And Billy wanted me to make a bot, basically, to track conversation in that channel in the hopes that maybe the traitor might slip up and say something suspicious and leave evidence behind. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and for me, personally, it ended up being a hassle because I had to type stuff between channels, and that actually led to 2 accidents that didn't really matter in the end, but I accidentally revealed to Snipe that Billy was one of the leaders for this reason. I had those channels open, and I had like the Mass Game channel open, and I sent all the orcs their votes, and then I meant to type in our main Leaders Mafia channel, and I accidentally typed in a Mass Game channel. And
we also typed hilariously, Billy asked which orcs are in Orchestra, which was the channel for the orcs in Bass, and you responded in Middle Earth.
I called out 3 different orcs, but I realized it like within like a second, and I just said I love you or something to be really trolling, and no one seemed to notice anything. And I actually looked at the Mafia 2 post game, and I noticed there's this, like, I think Wild Eep made a similar type of fuck up once, and again nobody really noticed it.
Oh no, the Mafia noticed it. That was one of the main reasons.
The Mafia noticed it, but the Village didn't, so that was kind of funny that it happened before. But anyway, let's get to the Echo Chamber now, because that's really what played a role this night. Sorry, do you want to talk first, or should I? Should I talk about it?
I was just gonna go through objectively what happened, and then you can run through your reasons for like why you did it. So they set up this echo chamber, which was intended to get idle times for a variety of orcs and village leaders to see if any of the orcs were potentially talking to the village leaders. And the idle times were very damning for Selver, who, as it turns out, was talking to the letter L about Bass Game stuff. But it was so damning that they set their one-time orc execute onto Selver. And and this was what irked me, I think. I think after this night, I said something a little rude in the night results, which was I said you should use evidence to determine your net actions rather than drawing conclusions from NSA stuff. And that was one of the first things that got Billy very angry at me. But basically what I was referring to, apart from Ray publicly declaring that he was some sort of Rohan role, was Snipe had just sent a log between himself and Loneliness in which Loneliness stated very explicitly that there was a Fellowship Mass Protect role, and no one on the Mafia noticed. And they subsequently had both their kill and the kill they had worked out with the wolf blocked by this mass protect roll, because rather than looking at, the actual logs they had with a known village leader, they were looking at idle times. And not that it was a complete waste of time. If they had aimed it at the right people, it would have worked very well. They could have found Alt, they could have found Ray Scarface with it, they could have found Xenu with it. But it just wasn't aimed at the right people, and it was mostly stemming from the fact they thought the traitor was a member of Middle-earth, which was an unfortunate misunderstanding that I cleared up after tonight, but was never intended to be a misunderstanding. So the result was that both of the kills aimed at villagers were blocked by the Fellowship Mass Protect, and the Forces of Soren used their one-timer on Sullivan. So, Bess, you can...
Alright, so there's one other... There's two things you also didn't mention, like, that I could understand, like, Billy doing his actions a little bit. So one thing about Sullivan was he was not really, like, keeping up with contacting me at all as an orc, whereas most of the other orcs were. So that was one point against him. The other thing I'm trying to remember was, well, the one thing that I still, like, disagree with Billy's thought, and I made it clear that I think wasting the one-timer wasn't a good idea. Mostly because, like, he sent this PM to me in the orc leader conversation. So not just to get the idle times with DLE, but there's one with Loneliness too. And Snipe posted that log that made it very clear that Loneliness was searching for people who claimed Gondor. Sullivan claimed Gondor, so that's probably why he was talking to him. So I figured there's not enough evidence that damned Sullivan, and therefore we shouldn't waste the kill. But then Billy mentioned earlier that he had to use fake flavor to claim that he was hooked, because he was instructed to use his fake, like, all-team, like, bodyguard that night and had to use hook flavor. And then the village wasn't talking to him at all tonight, so Billy thought he might have been outed, and he wanted to take the chance to use his one-timer. I think that was his motivation. I think it's very nice that you cleared up what you meant by the evidence. It wasn't really about who the traitor was. It was but rather that it confirmed the existence of a mass. It confirmed the existence of a mass fellowship BG. I think we might have noticed that. I just don't think we were sure it was Eagle 4 though. Because we only knew that he was Tracker from Ullr's claim. He didn't mention the all-team fellowship. So that actually was, he was smart enough to not reveal that to Ullr, or Ullr forgot to mention. I don't know which one officially happened, but that's been like, well, what the fuck?
It's not me. One.
What? And also, so yeah, and also in regards to the creation with the echo chamber, I did make it clear to my team that I said that I thought it wasn't worth. I didn't necessarily say it was a bad idea in principle. I said it was a big waste of time, because having relying on idle times. Because keep in mind, G-Max is like my biggest influence in Mafia, playing. He's the one who sort of invented this tactic. We were very well aware that using idle times improperly could be very misleading. And I think that was an example I think that's the one thing I can really fault Billy for this game, is using that LN log as evidence against Sullivan when it really wasn't. But And the fact that I can't believe Penguin actually went to the trouble of setting up the echo chamber script. I didn't really expect him to go through that. And since I was alive and I leave my computer on all the time, I was the one that sort of kept it running for a while. Well, it was only really used that night. After we misfired on Sullivan, we didn't pay much heed to it since then. But I also want to make it clear, Snipe said something earlier that he seemed to be under the impression that you showed up for us. he seemed to be under the, maybe it's because of what you were telling him, but he said that we were basically so damn like focused on shooting ourselves in the foot. When we were really our night kills at least were. I think our intention was to kill the villager. We just made we got blocked a couple times. That's really what it is to me.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, this was also. Oh yeah, this was also I think the point that was. I don't remember. Was it this night or the next one where we started officially collaborating with? Oh no. Yeah. We started collaborating. Yeah, we started collaborating with Gollum this night, and this is also a really major, I think, part of what made the game both enjoyable and frustrating was dealing with fucking Snipe, just partially pretending to be an asshole in the log. So
Yeah.
I kind of developed he was just acting. I wish I could post all the logs here, or people could read them for reference, but he was just generally being difficult, and he also pretended to be Vaughn for a moment by making 2 emails like that. So that he was very good at deceiving us. I'm gonna give him that. We didn't think it was Snipe at all.
I honestly never ever knew whether he was trying to play the game deviously to win or if he just wanted to throw it. And since I died night 2 and couldn't care less, I wasn't gonna tell him to win the game. But yeah, I never understood what was going through his head.
But basically, what I want to say is that my negotiation style, because Snipe was acting this way, I decided, you know what, I'm going to be a dick too. So I modeled it after the way Lightwolf has talked to me in past games. There was one game I remember in the past. It was We Don't Need No Mafia, where Lightwolf just comes on this I thought he was Flounder when he did this, so that I can't believe I made that mistake, and I know better now. But anyway, he starts typing to me in incomprehensible capital letters and just being super cowardly, and I wanted to be a frustrating prick to negotiate with too. That was my I modeled myself after Lightwolf. So and it was mostly in fun, but it made the game fun, just going back and forth, and then we were just trolling each other. And this is the night where that all started. So I'm mentioning that now.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the next couple of days and nights are pretty much best easily described by Lightwolf named the Mafia, and the Mafia and Wolf killed 2 people who claimed them. I think the order was they lynched Ditto, which was really just no discussion.
I died after the Ditto lynch.
Sorry?
I think I died after the Ditto lynch, and then Base
was it right after?
I think it was.
No, I think Ray, Scarface, and Lonely.
Yeah, you didn't die. Yeah, it was Ray, Scarface, and Element died the night after. But I think let's not.
Yeah, and then you lynched Blue Tornado.
Oh right,
obvious. Yeah, that was obvious. So.
And then the kills were Lightwolf and Eagle 4, and this time they were hooking Eagle 4.
Okay,
you should go ahead then.
So basically, at this point in the game, the Wolf was forced to kill off village power rolls because there really wasn't any other option. The village had enough information that they probably could have steamrolled, especially if they had used the Rohirrim through these couple of days. But they thought they were in a stronger position than they were. Around day 5, day 6, a lot of villagers were just sort of posting easy game, easy life, stuff like that. And I don't think they realized how much trouble they were in for a few days, until it was way too late.
Yeah, they got complacent at that point, and this was also a major turning point in the Mafia leadership. Kind of my role, in the first. So this is 1/3 of the game done. My primary role was mainly to be a liaison between the orcs and just doing mechanical things. And I decided to stop. I didn't the Bass game 3rd task ended around this time, and I decided not to start the 4th task because I really wanted to bring my team back into shape because it seemed like Billy had basically given up. He was really frustrated with the game, and I wanted to take some responsibility and help my team win. So basically, at this point, I was kind of the leader of the team officially. From this point on.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. So after Lightwolf died, basically the village did this weird thing where their cleaned people kept stepping up without any idea what to do and without really stimulating any discussion. And honestly, most of the people who responded were just Mafia. Like, IPL started wanting to do the Rohirrim stuff, which frankly would have helped the village a lot. Like, Asker responded a lot, Steven Snipe responded a lot. Most of the villagers, I think, had just become so just assured of winning as a result of having 3 or 4 straight, insta-lynches, that they stopped really trying to win, if that makes sense. They just started assuming they had already won and that someone would tell them how to do it. And I think this was really the problem, above all else, that the village leadership had in a game like this, because once you're out of the clean people, what do you do? How does the village... excuse me. How does the village leader system work if you don't have anyone who's clean? And I think that was one of the sort of safeguards built into the game, but more so, I think it was the half NOC aspect of it. I think that if during the day you're forced to actually engage with discussion with everyone else about what you want to do for the lynch, then at a certain point, everyone has to be involved or the village cannot possibly win. Because for every villager who isn't involved at all, that's like a higher percentage of Mafia who are driving the discussion. And especially given that the Rohirrim need to unanimously vote, the inactivity really hurt. Anyway, I guess we're going to sort of go a little quicker through the middle game, because at this point it's mostly just, most of the actions have very obvious reasoning behind them, like, killing Flamestrike, for example, killing Ryan, well, the Ryan Flick kill was, I'm at night 7 now, the Ryan Flick kill was pretty much just a rand, I think, out of the unknowns, because at this point there are only 4 or 5 unknowns and you guys were randing for Sam, if I remember correctly. And you did eventually get Sam on night 8 when you went to kill Xenu. I'm an alt, died night 8. Oregon?
I want to talk about I'm an alt just a little bit, because that one wasn't really quite random. Like, we were going to kill someone else, and this is one nice play I'll give credit to Soviet for. Like, it wasn't for a great reason or anything, but he literally said, "Why don't we try I'm an..." Like, he's friends with I'm an alt. He said, "Let's go for I'm an alt." And then I had memories of his posts. Like, there are a lot of posts like that he made. Like, I noticed in the thread, like after Soviet mentioned him, that made it seem like that I'm an alt was closely connected with the village leadership. Like, there's one where he almost basically even said he was legless, and I feel silly for not noticing it sooner. So it wasn't too surprising when we killed him.
I do feel that I'm an alt played very, very well this game, because he was a first-time player.
Yeah.
And I knew him from the Small Ground Fantasy Baseball League. I knew that he was at least competitive and active. And
He's not.
He made some pretty good deductions too.
Mafia.
Sorry?
Aminal's not new to Mafia. He's been around,
Really?
hasn't he?
I don't think he's ever played a Smog on Mafia game, at least not that I've been.
That's the only way I would know him, I think. I don't think I know him from, Great Library or anywhere.
I don't think he's ever played in a Mafia game, but it's entirely possible I'm wrong. Anyway, he's certainly newish, and I thought he definitely impressed me with his play. Him surviving, him protecting Eagle 4 for a while, and staying in the dark was definitely one of the biggest thorns in the Mafia's side in the early and mid game. But ultimately, the fact that so many people came to Ular just meant that, you know, they were able to inspect everyone after a certain point.
Oh, keep in mind, we had some really lucky inspects early in the game. Like we found Flamestrike was our very first inspect, I think, and we also got Paper Blade pretty early too.
Flamestrike you inspected because he claimed to Ular, and he wanted to know what Theoden did.
Well, I guess that's yeah, that's true. But I mean,